Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Friday, the 25th of October. I'm Stephen Ridgway. NVIDIA has patched some high severity flaws in Windows and Linux graphics drivers. So NVIDIA, despite the fact that NVIDIA is now huge and involved in many things, my experience of NVIDIA dates back to when they just made really cool graphics cards. Well, there are, I think, 6, 7, 8 vulnerabilities in the recent set of, in the current set of GPU drivers for Windows and Linux, and in its virtual GPU software. So I'm not going to read you a list of 8 CVE numbers, but they're in the article from Security Week, which we will link to the briefing. However, what I would say is that if you are using NVIDIA graphics cards, now is the time to look for updates to the drivers. Now, some cards will be using drivers provided by the OS. Some of you may have downloaded and installed specific drivers for specific cards, I would guess. So check both with your OS provider and with NVIDIA themselves to make sure that you have received these, because although then individually not incredibly high severity, they are high severity enough that it is worth getting this stuff sorted. I do appreciate that changing graphic card drivers often requires reboots, which does limit some on-prem issues. And definitely if you're replacing virtual stuff, of course, there is the risk you'll have to bring down your virtual devices and take them back up again. However, I'd say have a read of this. The software that's been updated is GeForce NVIDIA RTX Quadro, NVS, and Tesla. So if you're using any of those, have a look. Patches available. As always, recommend that you risk assess and apply at your earliest convenience. Also on the subject of bug fixes, Cisco has released a patch to a currently exploited bug in their ASA and Firepower firewall and defensive solutions. So the CVE specifically of concern is CVE 2024-20481. It's a medium severity flaw with a CVSS rating of 5.8. And it only affects devices that have the remote access VPN service enabled. Well, in my experience, that is quite commonly enabled if you are running Cisco ASAs or Cisco Firepower threat defense systems in one's environment. The flaw itself is down to resource exhaustion. However, even though the scoring isn't particularly high, I think if your architectural stars align and you are using these various components in this particular way, it probably would warrant a higher rating within your organization. You've got to bear in mind that CVSS ratings are a good starting point, but they do take into account various things or they make assumptions on various things which you need to ensure you have tested against your particular business risk and your particular security architecture design. So yeah, if you are using those devices and you've got the VPN enabled, and when you read into it, you may find yourself potentially open to exploit. I would say this shouldn't be written off as it's only a medium. Don't take the view that CVSS scores are the be all and end all, and you only need to deal with the criticals and high severity flaws. You need to actually understand for your environment how these things impact you and what the business risk is. This particular vulnerability is under exploit at the moment, or is being exploited at the moment, mostly through password spraying attacks and brute forcing. Definitely, again, worth looking to make sure that you've got some alerting based around identifying password spraying and brute forcing attempts against any components within your organization. Relatively straightforward SIEM alerts, SIEM rules to write, or whatever your security visibility tooling is. Definitely have a look at that one. Have a think about that one. If you're using these ASA devices, make sure that you've risk assessed and patched and updated as appropriate. And then finally from me today, nice short briefing to end the week with. There is an article in arstechnica.com, which is reporting on some research that has looked at location tracking of phones. So I think we're all aware that, yes, mobile phones can track your location. They can track your location very accurately using GPS and so on, or they can give a rough indication of where you are based on things like mobile towers that you're pinging and potential Wi-Fi networks that your device has reached out to or is aware of. So I think most of us are reasonably aware of the need to risk assess that and make sensible decisions about what should or shouldn't be able to track your location. Now, certain things are very useful if you are using if you're using maps of some sort in order for to navigate, well, you're going to need location data for that. Other things are useful or quite nice, but not critical. Having location data for photographs is kind of nice, because then you can say, show me all the photographs that I've ever taken whilst I've been on holiday in Argentina or something like that, which can be quite nice. However, there are lots of other apps that collect your location data, and you've got to ask the question, why are they doing that? Do they need it? Does it help the app? Does it help you to get a better service from the app if they know your location? Well, quite a few apps are collecting data, and it really doesn't significantly improve the service that you get from the app by them collecting data. Well, in the background, what they're doing with that data is they are selling it. So there are organisations, and the one that's been under observation here, or been the subject of this particular piece of research, is an organisation called, let me get this the right way around, Babel Street. It's a Virginia-located organisation in the US, but Babel Street has a service known as Location X, which has got the ability or the capability to track the locations of hundreds of millions of phone users for sustained periods of time. So that data is useful to organizations that want to know, there might be legitimate reasons for this, like, targeted adverts. Well, it really helps if, adverts for restaurants are local to you. That's kind of cool. Unless you're thinking, well, actually, who else knows where I am? Do you really want information about where you are at any specific time to be readily available? And as always, you need to think carefully, at least one needs to think carefully about the risks associated with allowing this stuff to be centrally held. How is Babel deciding whether the organizations they sell your location data to are legit or not? Because, for example, if you set up a very legit sounding business and then bought a whole load of data around user locations, you would be able to work out, for example, when somebody's not home, when they might have gone on holiday, where on holiday they are, giving you an indication of how much time you might have to go and rob their house. You know what I mean? It's like there are lots of nuances to this. From a user perspective, also briefly, Android and iOS treat this data differently. iOS has got some more rules what apps are entitled to request. And it is based around the fact that you have a unique ID for your device. And the unique ID is what's used to track. So the app requests the unique ID and then reports back saying this unique ID is in this location, kind of thing. So that's how it's all tied together. Apps don't have a de facto right to access the unique ID unless you give them consent. Android is, I think, a little less strict around whether apps can access your location or not. Either way, it is worth having a think about your location settings. And every now and then go back in. I do this. Every now and then go back in, look in your settings. So for Android, it's settings, location, app location permissions, and on iOS, setting privacy and security, location services, and just checking that the apps that are able to request your location make sense, and turn off permissions for apps to identify your location for apps where it isn't going to help the service of the app would be certainly something worth considering. Anyway, that's enough from me for the moment. Hope you have a good day and a good weekend.